the exciting city of Paris. The fashionable balls at the Opera House were traditionally no place for a future Queen of France, but Marie Antoinette was soon breaking all the rules.
Paris was the quick, frivolous capital where everything was going on, where there was theatre and opera and dancing, where various great ladies and not so great ladies had their salons, where pretty young dancers were kept up by financiers and aristocrats, where life was intense and quick and modish and amusing. And so, for Marie Antoinette, escaping Versailles became a major need.
At one of her late-night outings, Marie Antoinette met a young Swedish noble, Count Fersen. It was a brief, innocent flirtation, but he was to remain her lifelong admirer and champion, even in the dark days of the Revolution. Her reputation for self-indulgence was not helped by the frivolous extravagance of French court fashion. And when she found a companion in the highly emotional Madame de Lamballe, their close friendship became a favorite subject for gossip. At Versailles, where ridicule was a deadly weapon, Louis's failure to consummate the marriage inspired rumors that he was a cuckold and the Queen a loose woman. In fact, Louis suffered from a physical problem that made full sexual intercourse impossible. It was several years before he had the courage to undergo a simple but painful operation to alleviate his condition. In Vienna, Maria Theresa, anxious for the precious alliance, had her own theories.
They don't have our good German habit of sharing a bed.
Suddenly, in 1774, Louis XV was struck down with smallpox. When the candle outside his room was snuffed out, Marie Antoinette became Queen of France, and her husband, King Louis XVI. He had become fond of his Austrian wife and granted her wish to have a house of her own, the Petit Trianon in the Park of Versailles. Her mother, aware of her daughter's reputation, was swift with advice.
This charming first gift of the king must not give rise to great expense, and even less to dissipation.
Marie Antoinette's luxurious lifestyle was a far cry from that of the French peasants, for whom bread was the staple diet. Early in her reign, there were severe disruptions to the bread supply, and the Queen is alleged to have made the naive suggestion, "Let them eat cake."
In fact, she never said any such thing, nor was she likely to say so. She was conscious of the necessity of appearing always concerned with the hardships undergone by the poor. This had been drummed into her by her mother. Nor does it mean that she was really concerned, but she knew much better than to say something like that.
Self-interest dominated the power politics at Versailles. Since the king had broken with tradition by not taking a mistress, Marie Antoinette became an important source of royal patronage. Those excluded from her inner circle spread malicious rumors about the queen.
Her favourites are largely, not exclusively, but there are a large number of women as well as men. She's accused of lesbianism, which of course was known as the German vice, so all this fits in very nicely. It's the sort of thing the Austrians do. It's German activity.
Oblivious to criticism, Marie Antoinette gambled the nights away. Her heavy debts were often paid by Louis, who loved his wife, though she treated him with condescension.
There was the famous time at the Trianon when, because she liked to stay up late, that she actually put the clock forward so she could get rid of Louis XVI early. And because he always went to bed at 11, so she could get up early and go hunting. These stories got around.
By 1777, the marriage had still not produced an heir to the throne, and Marie Antoinette had a dangerous reputation for extravagance. She had become a liability for Austria's foreign policy. The Empress was anxious for the precious alliance with France. Her son, Joseph, now ruling the empire with her, set out for Versailles. He was highly critical of his sister.
She is drunk with the dissipation typical of this country. She neither fulfills her function as a woman nor as a queen. She completely neglects the king.
Louis was also taken to task. It was high time he had the long-delayed operation and started a family. Joseph left Marie Antoinette with a grim warning.
Things cannot go on like this forever. The revolution, if it happens, will be a cruel one. And you may well be the cause of it.
After 8 years of marriage, Marie Antoinette finally became pregnant. Louis had undergone the operation that enabled him to father children. When Marie Antoinette's time came, she had to endure a terrible public ordeal in the Queen's bedchamber.
The doors were opened, and anyone at the court came in who wanted to, as well as the great officers of state, to watch the Queen give birth. And I think it's important to remember, after all, what a humiliating and painful experience it is for a young woman to have to give birth in front of a large crowd, watching, commenting, and occasionally snickering.
On the 18th of December, 1778, Marie Antoinette gave birth to a daughter. There was still no male heir, but she had shown that the alliance between the French and the Austrians could prove fruitful. Always proud of her origins, her self-esteem was now restored.
When once one of her ladies said, "But Madame, the late Queen did it this way," Marie Antoinette drew herself up and said, "I hope that you're not thinking of comparing the late Queen, who was a little Polish princess, to an Archduchess of the House of Austria." And that was that, and the etiquette was firmly ignored.
Despite demanding the respect due to her as queen, Marie Antoinette avoided the duties that went with her position. She preferred to organize parties in her private gardens for her group of close friends.
I think the problem for Marie Antoinette is she could not see that what seemed ostensibly to be utterly frivolous and unnecessary procedures at court were actually part of a political system which, if you disturbed it, created a fragility which obviously finally was seen when the revolution occurs.
Revolution was taking place 3,000 miles away in America's struggle for independence. France soon joined the side of the rebels.
The French didn't want any territorial gains, but they thought there would be tremendous commercial advantages, and anything which broke the power of Great Britain would be to France's advantage.
In fact, France's costly involvement in the war ruined the state's finances. But heavy borrowing hid the fact from the public for another few years. At the end of 1780 came news that the Empress Maria Theresa was dying. She was never to see the French grandson she had long hoped for. On the 22nd of October 1781, a 101-gun salute celebrated the birth of Marie Antoinette's first son. In providing an heir to the throne, she had fulfilled her role as French queen. The future governess to the royal children, Madame de Polignac, now dominated the Queen's circle, which was growing increasingly influential. During the last years of the American War, the ministers for the Navy and for war were the Queen's protégés. The existence of this privileged group of insiders who met at the Trianon fostered dangerous resentment.